My name is Vilma and I'm a knitter from Finland, and on my channel I make videos about knitting and my own knitting projects and my sort of personal knitting progress. And in today's video I want to give you an update on which whips I have been working on for the past a bit over 2 weeks. And yeah, well, before I jump into the whips, I do want to quickly mention what I'm wearing. I am wearing the Siskon Paita design by Neulo Sisko, aka Laura Pajula and Liisa Saarenmaa. And I knit this one a couple of years ago. And I knitted in Cascade 220, I think with the right gauge and everything. And this is in the size extra small because I want it to be a pretty form-fitting sweater. So let me show it a bit better. You can get an idea of the fit. So the sweater is, for me, it's on the longer side. It goes like down here on my hips. And the only modification that I did for this sweater was that I added a little bit of waist shaping around here in the back, just to give it an even more form-fitting look. And overall I love this design. I think it looks really flattering and lovely, but Cascade 220, not really my favorite yarn. I mean, it feels lovely to wear, but it does pill, especially on the sleeves, on the collar work here. It's always pilling. Like, even if I were to use a sweater shaver today, I know that tomorrow it's back to pilling. So yeah, overall great sweater. I wear it a lot. It has taken the time, and I mean 2 years of wear pretty well, but the pilling is the main issue. Well then, to move into my actual current whips, for the past few weeks I have been an almost monogamous knitter because I've been working only on 2 projects. And that was mainly because, especially with the second project, I just really want to get it done and finished, and I want to wear it. The first project, the older one, I actually cast it on the 7th of November, and it went into hibernation almost immediately because I ran out of the yarn. So now, 2 months later, I got the yarn. I have been finally able to continue working on it. That would be the Run Rabbit Run hat by Lumi Karmitsa, and I am knitting mine from Stash Yarn, mainly British breeds by Mary Wallin. So I can show all of the colors that I'm using for it. Basically, I'm using these 5 colors from the British breeds line. So here we have Pale Oak, Raw, Evergreen, Lime Flower and Corn Cockle. And then together with these I am using dark brown from Jamieson and Smith. And the whole reason why this project has been hibernating for such a long time is because I ran out of the Corn Cockle shade. So even though this is a stash project, I actually had to go out and buy a new skein of this one. And here is what the project looks like in its current stage. I don't know exactly how to show it best. So when I ran out of corn cockle, I was still just around here. I had completed the ribbing and I was doing the first Colourwork motif. So since then I have been through that one, I've done the green one, and now I'm in the actual rabbit pattern. Though right now it doesn't really look like a rabbit yet. I've done some of the rabbit's stomach around here. But yeah, right now it just looks like some brown on brown. But I feel pretty good about this project overall. I think the pattern, does it come in just one size? Ooh, I should have checked this beforehand. It either comes in just one size or two sizes. No, I shouldn't speak on that further because I don't remember. I think only one size though. Another sort of unfortunate event that happened with this hat was that I originally worked this with some circular needles. I'm working with the needle size 3.25 millimeters, and I had circulars of the same size, and the cord broke on those circulars. That has only happened to me twice, that being the second time. So I felt really unlucky, but luckily I had these DPNs that I was able to transfer the project onto. Though I must say I would have preferred to work this with the circulars, because this amount of stitches is a bit too much for my taste to have on DPNs. But you know, it works, so I'm working along just fine with this. And with this hat, I realized that I usually only show my projects, but in my videos I don't really show how I actually knit. Like, you never see me knitting. So I thought that it would be nice to just film a little segment where I show how I actually knit Colourwork. So I thought it would be fun to demonstrate my Colourwork knitting technique a bit on the Run Rabbit Run hat that I'm working on. For the reference, the yarns that I'm knitting this pattern in are a dark brown from Jamieson and Smith and the pale oak from Mary Wallen's British Breeds. So I'm using the dark brown as the background color and pale oak as the contrast color. And so the two things that I want to show in this little clip are how I knit Colourwork, continental style, and how I make sure that these light brown stitches really show up from the darker background. So I'm going to talk about continental knitting and yarn dominance. So to start off with, I want to show how I knit a stitch. So basically in continental knitting, I hold the yarn in my left hand and I use my right hand to guide the right needle. Let's bring the stitches a bit closer. So how I knit a stitch simply looks like that. So I could knit stranded Colourwork with just switching out the yarn like that, dropping the one that I don't use and picking up the color I am using. But this technique can get a bit tedious, especially if you're changing the yarn often, as I'm doing here. So the way that I have learned to knit stranded Colourwork is by holding both of the yarns in my left hand at the same time. And the way this looks like is that I'm taking the contrast color over my middle finger, over my index finger as I did earlier. And I'm taking the background color over my middle finger, like that. And this helps me with two things. First of all, I now don't have to drop and pick up the yarn that I want to use. I have both of them here all the time. And secondly, as you can see, the contrast color goes behind the background color, and the background color is here in front. And this helps with really bringing forward the contrasting stitches. As you can see, especially in places where you have just like one contrasting stitch against the background, this really helps bring them forward. And knitting with these two yarns basically looks like this. When I want to take the contrast color, I pick it from there, from below, like that. And when I want to take the background color, I sort of pick it from the top, like that. And for me personally, also with this technique, I don't really have any tension issues. I find that keeping the yarns like this all the time really keeps the tension even for me. And you can see the back looks pretty neat and nice. So this wasn't an official tutorial or anything, but hopefully just a little snippet of actually showing how I make my knits. The only other project that I have been working on these past few weeks has been the Sew a Sweater by Anna Strandberg. The sweater is featured in this Line magazine, number 16. I always have to check it. And let me show a picture of the final sweater. Maybe I can... There. I hope you can see and the camera is focusing correctly. And I'm knitting mine in size 2 with the recommended needles, so that would be 4.5 milliliters for all of the main stuff and 3.5 milliliters for the cuffs and the collar. And I did not match the designer's gauge. Her gauge, if I remember from memory, is 16 stitches and 28 rows. And my gauge per 10 centimeters. And my gauge is 18 stitches and I think 28 rows per 10 centimeters. So I have accommodated that by adding some extra stitches. And so this is what the sweater looks like in its current stage. So From the previous time that I featured this sweater, I was still just working on the body. As you can see, the body is finished now. I've done the ribbing and I've bound off using Italian bind off, and I did the body pretty much exactly to the pattern. I just had to do like a super tiny modification with the ribbing because I had more stitches for the size 2 than the pattern has. So I had to decrease, I think, 2 stitches so that the ribbing would line up nicely. So I did that in the front and in the back. As you can see, I've knitted like in the pattern where the front is a tiny bit shorter than the back. Maybe sideways, I can show it a bit better. This hasn't been blocked yet. I'm hopeful that with blocking it's going to relax a bit more. And yeah, the other thing that I don't think I mentioned last time was, because of my stitch count, I also have one little sort of goof in the back of the collar here. So if you have the right amount of stitches, the ribbing should line up beautifully like it does here. So you can see the ribbing kind of goes there, it goes into the sweater very nicely right next to the cable. So I have that on the front, but on the back I don't. So you can see there the ribbing just kind of stops, and then the raglan just kind of starts from nowhere over here. So that's one mistake that I made because of my stitch count. I mean, I'm not really bothered by it. I think most of the time my hair is going to cover it anyway because it's in the back. But I wanted to point it out because, you know, these things happen, and I think in the future I have to be more mindful about, especially with ribbing, how my own stitch count might affect the design. So yeah, it's a small thing, but something to be mindful of if you also go by your own stitch count. So then I think it would be more beneficial for me to try it on to talk about the rest of this sweater. So here is the SOA sweater being worn. I forgot to say about the yarn. I'm also using the recommended yarn, which is the Hjellholts Ullspinderi Håndverksgarn. I can't believe I memorized that. I feel a little bit proud of myself. In this light grey color, which is the same one used in the sample in the Line magazine. So a couple more things that I wanted to say about this sweater. First of all, I knit the body length according to the pattern, and this is the most cropped sweater that I've ever knit. Somehow to me in the sample photos it looks a bit longer than mine, but that could be something that changes with blocking, or maybe it's just a mental thing that it looks longer to me than it actually is. So let me see if I can show the length a bit. So for reference, I'm wearing this skirt on my natural waist, and so it does come a bit over my waist, both in the front and in the back, and the slit here is around pretty much at the narrowest point of my waist there. So yeah, I am wondering if with blocking it's going to stretch out just a little bit, which I am kind of hoping for. And to me it's one of those things that maybe I just have to get used to it. It might look really great and really flattering, but I'm just not used to wearing such a cropped sweater. So I have to give it a go and then see with time if I actually want to rip it back a bit and add a couple of centimeters to the length. So we'll see. Nothing is decided on that front. Another thing with the blocking that I'm curious about, this is something that I did mention earlier, but when my sweater was shorter, I couldn't really comment on it much. But on other people's project pages on Ravelry, they do note how the short rows in the back are not enough for the shaping, and that in the front you get this sort of excess fabric, exactly like this. I kind of get it to disappear by just pulling on the sweater a bit. But this is another thing that really blocking will only show how much of a bother that is when actually wearing the sweater. But personally, I don't think it bothers me enough to actually rip back all the way to the collar, all the way to the short rows. I think I could just live with that, but yeah, we'll see. And then the third thing I wanted to say about the sweater is, of course, I finished the body and I have been working on the right sleeve, which is almost finished. So once again, because of my different gauge, I worked the sleeve a little bit differently than it is recommended in the pattern for size 2. I think for size 2 you are instructed on doing 5 decreases along the sleeve, but I did 7 to end up with the about correct circumference and correct amount of stitches for the start of the ribbing, the cuff. And because my situation was that my stitch gauge was off by 2 stitches, but my row gauge is pretty much spot on. I think at the most it's off by 1 stitch. So obviously because of that I was working extra length just to accommodate for my amount of stitches. And because of that, I think I started my cuff a bit later than it's instructed in the pattern. And also I'm doing my cuff about half shorter than in the pattern. So in the pattern you do like 2 cable repeats worth of the cuff, but I did just 1. Though now I'm kind of looking like, actually, could I have afforded to do 2? Because if I pull the sleeve all the way to my armpit, like, I could knit more sleeve. I don't know. I feel like I could do either way. And I also saw on Ravelry, on people's projects, some people were saying that they found the sleeves too long, so they modified them to be shorter. But I have kind of longish arms, so I don't know. I don't know if I should stop the sleeve here, or like if I really pull it, I could do another repeat. I don't know. This is something I would really appreciate other people's opinions on what to do with the sleeve length. Right now I'm kinda thinking about just ending it here, because I mean I don't really need the sweater to be that close to my armpit anyway. I think maybe it's meant to be more like this. I don't know, I really don't know. We'll see. Oh yeah, another thing, just the design feature. Last time I mentioned how you have this sort of fake seam on the side with a little bit of ribbing, so it's like a fake seam giving you structure on a seamless garment, but it's also a design feature. The same feature goes along the sleeves, which I think is pretty cool. Overall, I think this is a really cool and beautiful sweater. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about working on it, and yeah, just trying to figure out what I should do with the sleeve length. I think maybe I'll just finish it about here and then do the other sleeve, see how it is, especially after blocking, and then if I feel like I want to add length to the sleeves, to the body, I will do it. But for now, yeah, I just have to keep on working and then block it, and that's the real moment of truth with this one. So those were the 2 whips that I have been working on lately. Like I said in the beginning, the SOA sweater I have been working almost monogamously on. Never mind. I have been working on it a lot because I really want to get it finished and I want to wear it. I'm not really racing against the spring yet, because in Finland I'm going to be wearing sweaters until the beginning of May, pretty much. So I have plenty of time for the colder season, so that's no problem, but I just really want to get it off the needles. To end this episode with, I do have some acquisitions. I made an order at Lene Tricot, which I believe is a yarn shop in Paris. I sometimes order online from their shop because they carry some yarns that are more difficult to find in Finland. And one of them that I got was the corn cockle that I ran out of by Mary Wallin's British Breeds. Then I also got 2 other shades of the British Breeds. These are both the grey silver birch. These are for my Carrie's slipover. I haven't run out of the grey yet for that, but I was a bit afraid that I might, so just some backup yarn. Then I got a bunch of Jameson and Smith yarn. Let me see. I got the whites. They have 2 different white shades. So these 3 are the Optic White I got for my Tampere sweater, which I also ran out of the yarn for. And I got 2 of the unbleached white for my crochet projects, which I haven't been working on in a while. And then lastly I got 1 donut of the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the shade Ballerina. And this is something that when I make my spring plans video, this yarn is going to be for that. Which I already feel really excited about my spring plans. I have been planning and scheming about them a little bit, and I will make a video on that, I think in February. But yeah, I feel pretty excited about the spring knits, though I'm also excited to keep working on my winter knits for now. So that's everything from me for now. I would really appreciate if you could let me know, what did you think about my little knitting segment? Was it easy to see? Was it difficult to see? Was I going too fast or too slow? Really, any kind of feedback would be really valuable. And do you have any opinions about the sleeve length on my Zoe sweater? And lastly, I would love to know what you are working on right now. And are you also already thinking about your spring knitting, or are you fully immersed in your winter knitting still? Thank you for spending time here, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!